Hi, and thanks for having me. My name is Tanya Geis, and I'm so sorry I can't make it in person, but I am in Hong Kong at the moment. I worked with Bill Parker last year on Suffolk Futures in conjunction with my master's dissertation, which was on how art might contribute to coastal management. Today I will briefly describe three art projects which I hope can offer something in the way of inspiration by showing the practical and poetic potential of art that is guided by principles of ethical intention, interdisciplinary collaboration, open dialogue, community engagement, a sensitivity to the environment, and a flexibility and openness that allows for the complexity and uncertainty of the future.
The first project I'd like to talk about is the Underwater Art Museum. It was established in 2009 and is located near Cancun in Mexico within the National Marine Park. It is a joint collaboration between the park, the Cancun Nautical Association, and sculptor Jason de Caras Taylor. The museum consists of 403 permanent life-size sculptures at a depth of 9 meters. There are 4 installations covering an area of over 420 square meters of once barren seabed. The sculptural material is specialized to promote coral growth, which will form the foundation for a new and ever-evolving habitat for marine life to colonize. Cancun is Mexico's largest tourist destination, and the marine park receives over 750,000 visitors each year, and this places immense pressure on the resources. The art museum promotes the recovery of natural reefs by drawing visitors away and adding an additional stream of income that can be fed into conservation and education efforts. Community involvement has been important, with casts for the sculptures taken from hundreds of people, predominantly Mexican, representing all walks of life, including a yoga teacher, a nun, a fisherman, an acrobat, and an accountant. Local art students took part in creating some of the sculptures, and this year there are plans to invite local and international artists to contribute their own sculptural works to the museum. The project is so powerful on both practical and metaphorical levels for the generative relationships it creates between the sciences and the arts, the human and the non-human, the local people and international visitors, and finally, the present and the future. The second project I want to talk about is Three Rivers Second Nature, which involved the creative infrastructure planning of a region in western Pennsylvania in America at the confluence of 3 large rivers. It began in 2000 and continued for 5 years, led by artists Tim Collins and Reiko Goto and the Studio for Creative Inquiry at Carnegie Mellon University. The project involved artists, architects, and historians from the university, scientists and landscape architects from private practice, scientists and engineers from the country's sewage management, sanitation, and health departments. It aimed to understand the green infrastructure that provides social, aesthetic, ecological, and economic benefit to the region, to identify opportunities for ecological restoration, to understand the history and basis for cultural restoration, and to achieve these aims through public dialogue and engagement. An example of such engagement were the river dialogues used in planning recreational water trails along the rivers. The public were invited to take part in boat tours facilitated by environmental organizations who offered information on the changing ecology of the river. The tours were followed by design workshops where participants recorded what they found important about the areas, their concerns, and what they believed the opportunities were. This information was then processed by the artists and nonprofit advisors to develop a concept plan document. There were also 2 major conferences. The first involved public lectures and community meetings involving artists who work with community and environment, and the second was a month-long art and design residency, placing artists into local businesses and organizations. These included weekly project dinners, followed by public lectures and discussions. There was also a final exhibition of work from artists around the world who engage issues of society and environment through planning, design, and art. Practical outcomes included a well-used recreational water trail network, a vast amount of geographically referenced data on the river's ecosystem health, available online, and reports that suggested ways to revalue the river system as an asset to the county and its ecological citizens, rather than valuing it as an extractable resource for industry. The next project I want to talk about is the WaterPod project. It was a floating, sustainable, sculptural art and technology eco-habitat designed for the rising tides. It launched in the summer of 2009, and during its 5-month voyage, it visited and held events in docks and harbors throughout New York's 5 boroughs. WaterPod was the result of collaboration between a New York-based multinational team of artists, designers, builders, civic activists, scientists, environmentalists, and marine engineers, who worked with various local and international schools, groups, companies, and communities. Its intention was to create an environment that is both inclusive, public resource, and experimental private dwelling, an interior-exterior malleable space, and an aquatic-terrestrial mobile hybrid. It was in part a showcase for environmentally sustainable living solutions. Built entirely from salvaged material, it was powered entirely by a combination of a wind turbine, solar PV panels, bicycle power, and a Pico hydro system, gathering river energy. It incorporated human-powered water pumping, rainwater purification, grey water recycling, and a composting toilet. On board, it had a hydroponic and vertical agriculture system, and a number of chickens, a rocket stove, and solar cooking for efficient food preparation. The vessel had a large space for community and artistic activities. These included things like fine arts, performing arts, lectures, research projects, and various workshops on navigation, mapping, recording, all of these fully open to the public. There was also a living space that housed 4 artists for the duration of the voyage. WaterPod was a powerful illustration of the potential for positive relationships between communities, public and private, artistic and social, and aquatic and terrestrial. It visualized the future by embodying self-sufficiency and resourcefulness, learning and curiosity, human expression and creative exploration. These final thoughts from Mary Mattingly, one of the founders of WaterPod. The WaterPod is an extension of body of home and of community, its only permanence being change, flow, and multiplicity. It connects river to visitor and global to local, nature to city, and historic to futuristic ecologies. With this project, we hope to encourage innovation as we visualize the future 50 to 100 years from now.
So with these examples, I hope to suggest that art can make a real difference, and perhaps that it has a responsibility to do so. I'm just going to end with a quick quote from Kathy Ritchie, a student of Susie Gablick, who wrote this quite fantastic book called The Reenchantment of Art. She asks, "Is it the responsibility of artists to find solutions? I think that I must finally come to the conclusion that yes, it is their responsibility. I do not mean to say that it is solely their responsibility. I struggle with this to some extent, because I believe there is still a place for other types of art in our modern world. But I guess I would have to say that art must take an increasingly responsible role in pointing to a new direction for our culture." Thanks for listening.